Welcome to Tardisian Files, a show dedicated to reviewing and discussing aspects of one of the most loved and longest-running British sci-fi shows. This podcast is a non-profit, fan-led series where we pull together sources from all across Doctor Who's extended media, including the show itself, comics, audio stories, and novels. Happy anniversary, everyone! For those of you who tuned in to BBC last night, you will have borne witness to the highly anticipated first instalment of the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who, starring David Tennant and Catherine Tate reprising their roles as the Doctor and Donna Noble. And so, as promised, we will be discussing and reviewing episode 1 of the 60th anniversary specials, The Star Beast. And for those of you who haven't watched the special yet, 1, what are you doing? Go and watch it. Go and watch it right now. And second of all, there will be spoilers ahead. And so first, let's recap the events of the episode. So we jump right in with the newly regenerated 14th Doctor arriving in, apparently, Camden Market, walking around and taking in the sights. He sees a woman struggling with boxes and instinctively helps, only to bump into none other than Donna Noble and her daughter, Rose Noble. Immediately, a spaceship comes crashing through the atmosphere, witnessed by the Doctor and Rose, all the while Donna is completely distracted, and crashes in a steel refinery not too far from where they're standing. The Doctor runs off and catches a cab to the crash site, with none other than Donna's husband Sean driving him, with whom he covertly catches up with, pretending to be an old friend of Donna's frenemy, Neris. He finds out that Donna gave away her lottery winnings from the ticket that he left her before his 10th incarnation regenerated. After a short while, the Doctor arrives at the crash site, where he encounters Unit and Shirley Ann Bingham. He hears Shirley telling the unit sergeant that the spaceship, as it turns out, seems to have landed rather than crashed, damaged and in need of repairs. What's more, there was an escape pod, and it's missing. Meanwhile, back at the Noble house, Sylvia greets Donna and Rose. While Rose takes her sewing supplies out to the shed, Donna tells Sylvia how she feels like something in her mind from 15 years ago is missing. Sylvia tries to dismiss this, but unfortunately Donna is caught up in the moment, saying about how she had something lovely, and now it's gone. Outside, Rose is met by a friend of hers, who tells her that an escape pod has landed on the estate green, and the local kids have found it. They go across and they see a spherical-shaped escape pod in a shallow crater. Not long after, Rose heads back to her house where she finds, cowering in the bins, a seemingly helpless furry alien, the Meep, who tells her that the Meep is hiding from monsters. A small distance away, cybernetic insect-like humanoids are scanning the area surrounding the escape pod. They're looking for the Meep. Back at the spaceship site at the steel refinery, the Doctor is spotted by Shirley as he's analysing the ship using an awesome new holographic display from the sonic screwdriver. Shirley approaches him, at first thinking that she's dealing with a younger 10th Doctor, before he explains that he's regenerated into his former appearance, but is still someone new. He also explains that the universe appears to be bending around Donna Noble again, drawing everyone into the mess. He also tells Shirley that he had to wipe her memory, and that if she remembers the Doctor, she will die. Having collected all the information he needs, the Doctor leaves Unit to deal with the ship, heading towards Donna's new house, hitching a ride with the Unit squad that are arriving to the escape pod crash site. Unbeknownst to the Doctor, Shirley orders a squad to get up to the flight deck of the ship and investigate, but when they do so, they are encountered by a strange glowing purple light entity, which appears to possess them. Back at the noble house, Rose has taken the Meep into her shed, who is playing the role of the innocent, scared alien whose hand has been wounded from the so-called crash. It doesn't take long for Donna to come in and discover the Meep, becoming scared of the Martian in the shed. The Doctor arrives shortly afterwards, having hitched a ride from Unit, and makes his way to Donna's house. He walks in on quite a scene. Sylvia freaking out at him that he's there, the Meep hugging Donna's leg, and both Rose and Donna yelling. It's an utter fiasco. Everyone suddenly freezes when Sean walks in a few minutes later. The possessed Unit soldiers, outside on the green now, convince the soldiers already at the escape pod to go back to the steel refinery. They comply, and the possessed squad make their way slowly to Donna's house. Back inside, now calm, the Meep tells everybody a sob story about how the Wrath Warriors have hunted Meep kind for their fur. Suddenly, both the Wrath Warriors, the insectoid aliens from earlier, and the possessed Unit soldiers burst through the front and back doors of the house and begin to open fire at one another. With Donna's family, the Meep, and the Doctor in the adjacent room, the Doctor uses the screwdriver to project energy walls on either side, making a safe passage for them all to escape up to the attic while being chased by both sides. The Doctor uses the screwdriver to then crumble the walls separating the terrace house attics, allowing them to escape through the neighbour's house. When they arrive outside, the Unit and Wrath forces have now taken their fight to the street. However, as Donna's family and the Meep all climb into Sean's taxi, the Doctor takes a moment to take the pulse of a fallen Unit soldier. He doesn't say anything, but his face becomes suspicious. He tells Sean to drive to a parking complex, where, to everyone's surprise, he summons the Wrath Warriors from earlier and invokes Shadow Proclamation protocols to host a court hearing between them and the Meep. Very soon, the Meep is outed as Beep the Meep, leader of the Beep Armada, by the Wrath Warriors, who tell the true story of Meep kind. That they used to be peaceful until a psychedelic sun mutated them into bloodthirsty conquerors. Instead of keeping up the charade, the Meep, whose face becomes quite vicious, then kills the Wrath Warriors and summons its possessed Unit soldiers. The soldiers kidnap the Doctor and Donna's family and take them back to the steel refinery, where the Meep ship has been repaired. Meep reveals that the ship's launch mechanism involves burning 5 square miles of land as fuel, which covers the entire city of London. The Meep declares this to be their intent, as they order the soldiers to take the Doctor and the nobles away. As they're being taken through the refinery, Shirley, who escapes the Meep's mind control, knocks out the soldiers and helps them to escape. The Doctor heads back towards the ship's engine room. Donna tells her family to run and follows the Doctor. She even calls him the Doctor to her family, seemingly without realising, prompting Sylvia to realise that Donna is remembering. The Doctor is working in the engine room just as Donna arrives and the doors deadlock behind her. After protesting, they both get to work, Donna following the Doctor's instructions to deactivate the engines manually. Meanwhile, cracks begin to form all over the city of London as the ship's engine stabs down into the ground to begin fuel extraction. The Doctor soon realises that the only way he can stop the engines now is to unlock the Metacrisis Dr. Donna consciousness locked away in Donna's mind. Donna urges him to, saying that her daughter is out there. He agrees and restores Donna's memories, giving them about 1 minute before her mind begins to burn. They get to work and Donna effortlessly deactivates the ship, reversing the extraction and magically restoring the cracks in the sidewalks, no doubt saving the London Mayor's office a hefty pothole filling bill. Donna passes out in the Doctor's arms, apparently burning up once more as her reawakened Metacrisis powers overwhelm her. Angered, the Meep orders its soldiers to kill the Doctor and Donna. However, a voice suddenly comes through the ship's intercoms, and the soldiers revert back to normal. It's Rose! Speaking in the same Time Lord babble, she reveals that the meta-crisis passed down from her to Donna, sharing the Doctor's knowledge between them, and in doing so, slowing down the meta-crisis side effect process, saving Donna from burning up. Donna wakes up, and then tells the Doctor how all of her latent memories came out in Rose's subconscious. Rose choosing her own name, making toys out of memories of the aliens that Donna had met, setting up the studio in the shed, reminding her of the TARDIS. It had always been inside both her and Rose. After ejecting the Meep from the spaceship, and alerting more Wrath Warriors to the whereabouts of their prisoner, the Doctor and the Nobles are standing before the Wrath Warriors once more. Before being taken, the Meep mentions that now that they found the Doctor, the boss would be pleased to hear it. They teleport away. The Doctor ponders this for a second, before turning to Rose and Donna, who explain to him that, between them, they can simply choose to give up their meta-crisis powers rather than having their minds wiped again. They do so, retaining their memories, but not the knowledge, and the powers fade away. Later, the Nobles and the Doctor make their way back to the TARDIS. Donna intends to use the TARDIS to visit Wilf, who's in unit care under Kate Stewart, knowing that he'd be thrilled to know that she can finally remember the Doctor once more. They enter the TARDIS, where we are greeted to the largest, first ever 360 set interior, complete with a coffee machine. This, however, proves to be a design flaw of the highest order, because not 5 minutes into seeing the new TARDIS, does Donna manage to spill coffee all over the console, causing the TARDIS to begin spewing flames and sparks everywhere. The TARDIS violently materialises to a random location in time and space, setting up the next episode. And so, with the recap out of the way, let's dive into the pros and very few cons of the episode. To start with the positives, I thought that this was a great adaptation of a classic story from the comics. For those who are maybe on the younger side and not as aware of the Doctor Who Extended Universe, this story wasn't really a new idea. It actually came from a Fourth Doctor story called Doctor Who and the Star Beast from a comic published in 1980. Beep the Meep was, just as he was in this episode, an alien who pretended to be cute and fluffy and needing help, but beneath it all, he really was just a awful little evil ball of fur. I don't know about anybody else who is aware of the Doctor Who Extended Universe, but I, for one, was sitting there in front of the TV going, "Beep, you lying little bleep!" Honestly, I thought the adaptation was incredible. Now, bearing in mind, because obviously they were bringing David Tennant and Catherine Tate back, they had to throw in some throwback lines from back when they were both first in the TARDIS. And the episode did that amazingly, with endless throwback lines of Catherine and David's first time in the TARDIS, such as Neris and Martian. It was perfectly woven into the dialect, and it wasn't like throwaway lines. It was perfectly executed, and the actors just seemed to fit back into their roles so flawlessly. They did an amazing job, I thought. Focusing more on Beep the Meep for a second. Now, the design I was a bit about, but generally speaking, the villain was so threatening. That moment where he was outed as the head of the Meep Armada, there was no hiding it. The Meep just changed. His face became vicious. It honestly reminded me a little bit of a gremlin. But it is the fact that because it's small and a furry alien, you wouldn't expect that of a seemingly cute and fuzzy little thing. But the execution was flawless, and I'm not sure if they used CGI or a 3D model or a mix of both, like maybe they historically would. But the actual design to be able to go from cute and furry and still very alien-like, whilst also threatening, was very well done, I thought. I definitely felt both threatened and was like, oh, at the same time. So that was another thing, a very threatening villain. Additionally, it was the perfect excuse to bring back and expand the Meta-Crisis arc. The Doctor was in crisis. He couldn't shut down the engines on his own. The City of London was about to burn. What else is he going to do other than bring back Donna's subconscious? And of course she's going to want that, because it was her daughter, it was her husband, it was her mother, and probably Wilf as well, depending on where he's living these days. It was just... They were able to bring it back so flawlessly, and as an added bonus for those who've been keeping up with the fan theories throughout this time leading up to the episode, they know that there was a popular fan theory about Rose Noble that she would have the Meta-Crisis powers that Donna had. And they executed that so flawlessly, whilst also bringing in important transgender rep into the Doctor Who episode. In this episode, it was also a really nice way to gently reintroduce UNIT, making it clear that UNIT, yes, they're back on the scene, they've got the funds, they've got the soldiers, they've got the characters, and making it clear that UNIT are going to be a very relevant presence in both Doctor Who and potentially the spin-offs that are lined up to land on Disney+. Additionally, it was a great introduction to the character of Shirley, who we know from the trailer will be appearing at least in the episode The Giggle, maybe not The Wild Blue Yonder, but at the same time, it just introduced her as this feisty, confident UNIT scientific advisor, clever. You could tell she was in charge. She was a boss, and I loved it. I am really looking forward to seeing her in the next episodes or so, and maybe in the future of Doctor Who, or with the UNIT spin-offs, if Ruth Madeley has signed up to continue playing this role. Another thing that maybe I could have mentioned before was the new Doctor Who opening titles. I don't know anybody else, but I thought they were just incredible. Really, it's just, you can tell that a significant amount of time and effort has been put into producing these new beautiful graphics for the Time Vortex, for the TARDIS, and just a very good use of CGI and design to make this wonderful new titles, really showing that this is a new era of Doctor Who with a bigger budget, more creativity, more creative minds, and I thought they were incredible. I think, if anything, that was probably my biggest pro on this list. Moving on to some production notes, the costume and the set designs were amazing, especially the TARDIS. Now, I don't know if it was intentional. I do remember reading an article this morning, I believe in Screen Rant, where Russell T Davies just explained that he wanted the new TARDIS set to resemble the classic TARDIS with the white roundels, with the white console, but I don't know if this was intentional or not, but the design to me appeared to resemble what was planned either for the 7th or 8th Doctor in the classic series of Doctor Who, had it not been cancelled. It was originally designed by Mike Tucker. A concept design set was actually built in 1998 in I believe a docu-series where they explained sort of why Doctor Who got cancelled, and then it was also used as one of the TARDIS interiors for the 7th Doctor in a few comic book series that came out after the cancellation. But anyway, the TARDIS itself was beautifully constructed, whether it was intentionally made to look like the cancelled Series 27 interior, or if it was done to just be a throwback to the 60s TARDIS interior, whatever it was, I thought it was amazing. It was huge. That Disney Plus budget really is paying off, because they have clearly put a lot of effort into building this TARDIS, and I really am quite impressed. I thought that was wonderful, a wonderful redesign, and I'm hoping that it persists into Shitty Gatwa's tenure in the TARDIS, because that would really be something. Additionally, I think I said it before briefly, but all of the actors returning to play their roles, they were amazing. They just slipped back into their original dynamics and dialogue and mannerisms flawlessly. And additionally, the new actors such as Yasmin Finney and Miriam Margolyes as Beep the Meep. They just did an amazing job of filling their roles. I don't know about you, but I'm sure Yasmin Finney probably looked at the script when she was supposed to be running off that Time Lord babble and just thought, what is this? How am I going to say this on set? I don't know how many takes it took for her to get that right, but if she got it right first time, respect. However, despite the brilliance of this episode, there were a few cons that came with the episode as I was watching it. So the obvious one was for me, the Meta-Crisis ending. So Donna and Rose agree to just give up the Meta-Crisis, sort of like in any fantasy show where they just say, oh, I relinquish my powers or something. Now, bearing in mind, Meta is in the name, so maybe it's not the most biological, physiological thing in the world. It's probably got an ethereal component to it. But for me, if Donna knew that she could let the Meta-Crisis go in 2023, she knew she could let it go 15 years ago. So the idea that the Meta-Crisis is something that could just be let go felt kind of rushed. In my opinion, it seemed like it could have been something that they could have just addressed in the original series, and it kind of makes the whole act of the Doctor wiping Donna's memory to prevent her from ever remembering, or prevent her from burning up from these powers. It just seemed a little bit pointless or redundant. That said, it was still a very powerful moment for Donna and Rose, but at the same time, I personally would have preferred it if RTD could have made it a running theme for the next 2 episodes, with the Doctor working against the clock to save Donna and Rose from the impending disaster that would have come with them holding on to the Meta-Crisis powers without any way of giving them up. Additionally, since this was an adaptation of a comic story, which typically tends to be shorter than a TV story, the second half of the story, at the point where the Doctor holds the hearing for Beep and the Wrath Warriors, seemed a little bit rushed, in my opinion, with the Beep being found out very quickly, rather than it not being revealed as a twist at the last second. Now, bearing in mind, this might have landed better with older audience members who know more about the Doctor Who Extended Universe, and it certainly was still a twist, but for those who kind of knew what Beep was up to and knew what was coming, they could really have done a better job, I think, with holding us in suspense and revealing at the last second that no, the spaceship wasn't the Wrath Warriors, it was Beep's, he was going to escape, he was going to turn on them. They could have saved that until later, but they didn't. I think the Doctor maybe cottoned on a bit too quickly what was going on, and it maybe spoiled the reveal a little bit for those who sort of knew what was happening. And my final con for this episode would be Donna breaking the TARDIS. I mean, while it was funny, because she was just saying, oh yeah, this was how I lost my last job, I spilt the coffee over the computer, and then proceeds to not drop, but quite literally flip her mug over the console. It just didn't make much sense to me. It was definitely done for a comedic gag, but I think the execution was just a bit poor. We had just seen the new TARDIS, and immediately it's up in flames, it's sparking. It just seemed like another opportunity where the TARDIS could have just dematerialised or been dragged away by some unknown force, and that really would have better set up the next episode, I thought. But at the same time, the coffee does kind of explain why the TARDIS seems to have buried itself in the walls of the ship that they end up in the wild blue yonder, based on the trailer. So, different equations, same result is fine. I personally just thought that it was a bit of a wasted opportunity to maintain the mystery of this boss, who we all know is probably Neil Patrick Harris's The Celestial Toymaker, but, that is a conversation for the third review in this little mini-serial. So, overall, I'm giving this rating a rating out of 15. I'm giving it a 13.5. It was a brilliant reintroduction to the Doctor and Donna's dynamic. It was a wonderful introduction to UNIT and a brilliant adaptation of the story The Star Beast, filling it with new characters, filling it with amazing new CGI that's come in from the massive new budget for Doctor Who. The set design was amazing, the costume design was amazing, all of the characters, all of the actors played their characters flawlessly, and wrapping up the Meta Crisis arc, apart from the slight rush with the giving up the powers, definitely it was nice to see that the arc was expanded and brought back and sort of wrapped up. I think that it was a really good execution for the first instalment of the 60th anniversary. And I'm really looking forward to next time with The Wild Blue Yonder, where we see how Donna's Butterfingers drew them so terribly off course that they end up in some kind of crazy spaceship with something so terrifying that even the TARDIS runs away. But that is for next time. Thank you everyone so much for listening. It really is a joy to be sharing this with you during the 60th anniversary. So for those of you who've been watching Doctor Who for a long time, for those of you who are new to it, it really is wonderful to share this with you. And I hope you're enjoying these reviews as much as I'm enjoying making them. And I look forward to seeing you all next time on Tardisian Files. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and share with your friends. You can also listen to extracts from our podcast on our TikTok and Instagram pages at Tardisian Files Podcasts. You can also join our Reddit community at Tardisian Files Podcast and put forward suggestions for future episodes. And, as always, see you next time on Tardisian Files.